As of the last 10 years or so, the NBA has seen a lot of prospects that come in as a 6'7" or 6'6" guard and really have the only ability to slash. When I think of that, I think of players like Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, of course, coming into the league was known as a pure slasher, a raw talent, and eventually has developed into a very good shooter. A player exactly like that in this year's draft class is Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore is a guard out of Villanova, or small forward, depends on who you ask. He's 6'7", a very versatile player, and a player that I believe has one of the higher ceilings in this year's draft class. Cam Whitmore puts together a special combination of finishing and defense that this draft class seems to have a lot of. But Cam Whitmore is one of the best at it in this draft class, and there's a reason he's projected to go top 5 in this year's draft. Cam Whitmore is one of the toughest finishers in the collegiate system right now, and coming into the draft, I surely hope and I surely think that this will eventually translate to the NBA level. And on top of that, I think he has the ability to shoot a bit that will also translate. I have questions about his jump shot just because he's a little bit slower, but his release point is high enough where I think that it could work at the NBA level. I think he could be sped up a little bit, but the other assets that he has in his game is going to help him get by in the NBA until he can eventually develop his jump shot good enough to be above average in the NBA. There's special assets to him that he's just smart on offense. He's a great off-ball cutter, even though sometimes he can get tunnel vision when he's on ball, right? I feel like we see a lot of this coming from backcourt players coming into the draft or coming into their rookie year. A lot of tunnel vision happening, and I don't know what to blame that on. I blame it a lot on AAU basketball, but that's just because that's how that's built. I think once they go to the NBA, they kind of get it figured out. But the off-ball cutting is also something that a lot of people learn in AAU, which is a great thing, right? So Cam Whitmore, a lot of talent there, and especially with his defense, because I think he's athletic enough to be a solid perimeter defender, and he's a big body, so he's not afraid to really go in the paint and defend some of the bigger players, some of the centers, some of the power forwards, and that's where his versatility really comes in this year's draft, because him as a player, he's a great slasher, but his defense, how he can guard pretty much 1 through 5, in my personal opinion, is what's going to really make his career last. You can talk about his slashing being a tough finisher. You can talk about his potential to have a good jump shot, and I agree with all of those statements. But personally, I think his defense is what's going to really keep him in the league, and I think is what's going to really be his solidified statement to whatever team ends up drafting him. I want to talk about more about how him as a player and his versatility is lacking in some areas, though, because I think his versatility on defense is fantastic. But on offense, as I said, great off-ball cutter. His shooting can use some work. Slashing is good, but his ball handling and self-creation really does need some work. I view his ball handling closer to a Jaylen Brown than Anthony Edwards. Like, I think Anthony Edwards has a better ball handle, a player that has a better feel for what he's doing on the court versus Jaylen Brown. Sometimes it looks like he's all a little willy-nilly out there, where any above average perimeter defender could really come and poke it out and, get a quick rip, which is fine, I guess, for a rookie coming in, right? But I think players just like Jaylen Brown need to improve in that, and I'm afraid that Cam Whitmore doesn't end up improving on that, especially as a small forward, shooting guard, whatever you project him to be in the NBA. I think he really needs to work on it because, as I said, if your jump shot isn't pure and it's not great, I think you're going to struggle in the NBA on offense if you can't self-create or ball handle, and that's really going to limit you to an off-ball role, which obviously, as being a good cutter, he could eventually become a good player based off of that, but it will really substantially limit what he can do in his prime. I think if he can figure out his ball handle and playmaking and creation, stuff like that, he can really get tuned in. I think he could be a multiple-time All-Star, which is great for him, but I don't know if that's going to end up happening. There's a problem, though, on his defense with off-ball, though. There's a problem with him watching. Anthony Edwards does it a lot. You see it a lot in these younger guards. When they're off-ball defending, they watch their player, and a lot of time it leads to an open bucket for the opposing team, which happens, and that's something that you can really learn, especially coming into the league. So I don't expect a guy like Cam Whitmore to be a perfect prospect, but I think it's easy to really overhype prospects coming into the draft, especially a guard that is exciting or a backcourt player that is just exciting as Cam Whitmore is, a player that has all the talent in the world, but we need to settle down because I think this is a player that's going to need a couple of years to really develop. And once he does develop, and if he does develop, I think he is going to be up there with those guys. I think the reason he's going to be drafted at 5 or 6 is because of the fact that he has a high ceiling. His floor, I would say, is also high, but the fact is that I feel like he's more than likely going to stay at his floor because of the things that he needs to fix are a little bit more difficult to fix. Ball handling is tough to fix. We've seen it with a lot of guards, and the fact of off-ball defense is also hard to fix because that's a lot to do with basketball IQ. With all that being said, I think Cam Whitmore has a lot of talent coming into this year's draft. I think that he can be great in this year's draft, but I need him to develop and I need him to get locked in. Step number 1 right there. If he gets locked in, a lot of the problems that he has coming to this year's draft will be completely fixed. I love him as a prospect, but that's my honest opinion. If you guys agree or disagree, let me know in the comments down below. It's been your boy JELSON. See you guys next time. Peace out.